Welcome to the Grizzled Geologist Podcast. I'm your host, Keith Carden, and I have brought David Brent Jones on the podcast today to talk about a couple of books he's written, The Teacher's Guide to Entrepreneurship and The Student's Guide to Entrepreneurship. But before we get started, I'd just like to extend my always persistent invitation to have people come on the show. I'm looking for engineers, geologists, anybody in oil and gas, land, regulatory. We like to have people on to come and talk about their aspects of the business and personal stories in their lives. So go to my website, thegrizzledgeologist.com, go to my YouTube page with the same moniker. Make sure you subscribe, like, hit the notification bell, and feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn as well. That's actually generally the fastest way to get a hold of me. So without further ado, I brought Dave Jones on the podcast today, and he's got quite a bit of insight and experience with entrepreneurialism. I've kind of known him my whole life, and I'm really grateful that he wanted to come on the podcast, and I think this is going to be very insightful for people. So, Dave, why don't you get started and tell people about yourself?
Thank you very much. I have been an entrepreneur for many years. I've had the opportunity of starting a business with myself and a secretary, and I grew it to 13 offices around the United States. We had about 700 employees, and then I've also had some that were smaller. I've always liked to be an entrepreneur. I've liked the opportunity to it. Many years ago, I read something that I've never forgotten, and it was statistics that were done on the richest people in the world. And I found out that 73% of the richest people in the world were entrepreneurs. And I thought, that's something for me. I'd be honest with you, I have to admit, I think I'm a better leader than I'm a follower. So that's been the way I have tried to do it. But what happened to me was during COVID, we were all locked up in our house and such as that. And I just said to myself, I'm going to take advantage of COVID. Had the opportunity to write the book, The Teacher's Guide to Entrepreneurship and The Student's Guide to Entrepreneurship, which really has opened the door to a lot of success and a lot of people coming to want to look at that.
Great.
Well, as I say,
what was the origin of it? Go ahead.
Well, the origin of it was that I was amazed at how many, when I did research, how many friends would come to me and say, how do you start a business? How do you do it? I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to do any of that. And then maybe the real impetus that came to it was that a very large academy here in Arizona, where I am in Phoenix, came to me about 7 years ago, and said, they're very unique high school. What they do is they have a rather high school course subjects like English and math and such as that, but they also have academies. And they wanted to start an academy called the Business Academy. And they came to me just before COVID shut down, and they said, can you build that academy for us? And I said, I'd love to have that opportunity. And so the timing really was great. I literally was going to start, as I remember, right after Thanksgiving, and then the doors closed and such as that. And so I wrote the book to be able to get involved in it. And I've just always been that way. As you know, I started a bank here in Arizona. Mm-hmm. I'm not a banker, but I knew the opportunity was available. I've been on the board of directors of several large corporations. And so I've seen the inside of how businesses run, and frankly, the inside of how profitable businesses run. So that was.
It's also important to see, in my career, I've found seeing failure to be one of the real learning experiences. And hopefully you've avoided a lot of that. Most of what I've experienced wasn't on my nickel. I was working for other people, but, the success and failure, I think, is what really paints the picture of, understanding business. But, in that same kind of vein here, what are the kind of fundamental steps to starting a business? And I'm talking about like the physical things, come up with an idea, and, what's the next step? Starting an LLC, what do we do to become an entrepreneur?
Well, the first thing, those are big words, aren't they? The first thing we need to do in all businesses is we need to take a little step back and look at how can I improve something? How can I make it faster, quicker? cheaper. Anything like that. In fact, I don't even like the word cheaper. I like inexpensive is what I should say. How could I do that? That's where I've always had that gift of looking at what do we not have and how can we improve that? And I think you do that in your business. I've listened to some of your podcasts, and the ideas that you do is exactly the same thing. You may not be an entrepreneur, but you're doing it for somebody else. So how do you start a business? Well, let me tell you how you do it. What I do, first of all, is let me give you the example of in our academy, what I did was I said, if we're really that good, why don't we give them college credits? And so we were able to, it's called dual enrollment. We were able to have, when they took my class, they were able to get 3 hours of college credits for it also to go to accredited university in business, as an example. So what I did to begin with is I said to the students, and I said to them that we are just going to go step by step, and first thing we're going to do is we're going to form a business. How are we going to do this? Well, how we're going to do it is I'd like you in your class, you may have some friends that you want to do a business with together, or you may want to go solo. But the first thing we need to look is a business entity. Who do you want to be? And just a brief understanding of it is that most people are what we call sole proprietors. It just means that for every dollar you earn in your business, you pay your taxes as an individual. And you could be a partnership, and partnership is the same thing. Keith, you and I are partners, but they're 50-50 partners. And so we'll split the expenses and we'll split the revenues and what is called the net revenues that come in. That's after. Now, in my business, I was in a more technical type business, and I wanted to be able to separate my personal life from my business life. And so I was what's called a C corporation, and that gives you a complete separate entity so that what I earn in my business, I had separate check accounts, I had savings, I had everything that was separate. And so with my students, what I do is
you pay yourself a salary from that, right?
Exactly right.
And that way is you're actually paying a salary from the company as opposed to, basically writing off and doing this. You're an employee of your own company. And those are completely separate.
Those are completely separate. The way I did it, I was very fortunate, but in my corporation here in Arizona, it was a June year end. And so about a week before the end of June, I would have my secretary take down to my CPA my books of revenue expenses. And then I would meet with him about 2 days before the end, and I would just simply say, I'd meet with Cindy, my wife, or not meet with, I'd visit with Cindy, my wife, and I'd say, how much do you want for the house account? And then I would decide how much I wanted to bonus out my employees. And then we knew exactly what was left to pay taxes on it. Because I was a real believer that I'd rather zero out my corporation as well as possible and give it to my employees. And so that was my way of doing it. But getting back to the students, the way I did with them to make it a little bit easier, I had them actually write a real partnership agreement. And in my book, you will see that it teaches the student how to do a partnership agreement or a whatever you want agreement. That's where you start. That's where you become real. Then what we did is we spent time on talking about how you're going to make money. How do you want to do it? And there's basically two ways to make money. One is what we call service. You could have a business that you service. For instance, I have a neighbor of mine that's done it remarkably well. He has a janitorial services, and he has contracts with what I'd call the larger buildings or whatever it may be, and they go in at night. Properties. That's exactly right. They go in at night, they clean the properties, and it's been an incredible business for him to do that.
Yeah.
Or you could have, here in Arizona, we have green grass all the time because we don't know what winter is. We sure know what summer is.
Right.
But and so we have some great landscaping companies that are actual companies. It's not like when you and I, Keith, were younger, we'd go mow the lawn or do something like that. They're businesses that they do that. The other one is that that you offer a service or, excuse me, that's a service. The other one is you offer a product. And in my case, the product that I am offering is the book. There's two books that go along with it to do that. So my students would look at how they wanted to make money and to be able to see the best ways that are available for them to make money. And so what we would do is almost what you should do with a business is every class day we took time to do what we call an accounting, where we would get each day we would record how much money you brought in, a student or a team, or how much expenses you had in your business. We had an accounting for them. And we do that every month with them. And a lot of the students kind of wanted to do it easy and just sell sodas and popcorn and things like that at school. But I shied away from that. I said, we can do better than that. And so they were able to form their businesses and do that. And so we would be able to teach them how to make money. Now, I would have on the average of about 100 students a semester for five months a semester. And 100% of their money was theirs. They kept all the money, but they could not have the money until the end of the semester because it's too much temptation for them. Of course, business owners, it's different. But I was pleasantly surprised to see at the end of the semester, these students would earn somewhere between $110,000 to $140,000. Now that's not bad.
No.
For a student at all.
No, you're kidding me.
No.
Well, so what were some of the things that these guys did?
Well, they would, let me just think of a couple that were fun. One of the young ladies, I got ahead of myself on something, but let me answer that question. One of the teams decided that they were going to do trading with watches, wristwatches. And I said, well, okay. And so they went and bought, I'm going to say a Seiko as an example, not to be derogatory about a Seiko, that maybe they spent together $100 for. And eventually they were trading the finer type of watches for hundreds.
To Rolexes, huh?
And they traded Rolexes. They sure did. And they did those type of things, and they did extremely well. I had one team, and they were all females, and their dad had a truck, and their dad was and by the way, the parents couldn't help. I mean, we had an honor system, and I would check with the parents once a month to have them sign that they weren't helping them. I had a group of 2 or 3 ladies, and they would go around on Saturdays around to what do you call them, yard sales, and they would find yard sales that had a cabinet or had tables or had whatever chairs, and they would say, we're an entrepreneur company and we're getting started. 90% of the time they would just say, oh, just take it. But anyway, and they would go back, and during the week they would go in the garage and they would just refurbish it, and then they could sell those tables and all online. They did extremely well. Another quick one that I thought was really fun is I had a young man that said he wanted to have a window cleaning business. But the surprising thing was that he thought he would go from home to home and have an agreement, which is fine. But his dad is an entrepreneur, and his dad said, no, I think we can get you in the building where I'm in. And before long, he had a 5-story building, but he knew he couldn't do it. So he hired some of the students and
subbed somebody out.
And so he became the entrepreneur for them. And as I remember, he raised in that 5 weeks, I think he raised something like $25,000 for him or whatever it may be. I can't remember.
My gosh.
They had great ideas of how to do it. And it's contagious, because when you see somebody else making money, it's like happiness is contagious. If you get together and everybody's laughing, and it was contagious to do that. So it was really incredible. Then what happened was the school came to me and said, would you actually start a business in our building? And so I was able to put our students to work there after hours. and we sold everything from T-shirts to flags to that. We eventually had some in the name of the school. We had some golf clubs that had. I have a friend of mine that makes golf clubs here and has a business. It's kind of a hybrid type. We had golf balls. We would go to golf tournaments and sell them, and they just did incredible.
That's really cool. And those are all just fascinating stories. I mean, that's serious money. These are high school students. I mean, that's really a really cool story and success for these kids. But at the bottom, at the end of the day, I was thinking about what's happening here, and the bottom line is you are the entrepreneurial spirit. You're able to motivate these kids, but they put in the work. And that's what I see as one of the most important things in all of this is your ability to, if you want to be an entrepreneur, you have to put in the work. Like, don't think you don't just get to show up and check in halfway. If you want to make your own money, be your own boss, there's a level of responsibility and hard work that you're not going to be able to get out of. It's not going to work if you don't put it in. So that's a big deal. And I bet you I
love your comment, but I want to tell you that what I taught these students, because I taught myself, was there's a big difference in working and working smart. And so I taught them how to be productive. And then it became fun because these students came in scared. I mean, they were concerned. This was new. What's going to happen? And it got around the school that the last class had earned, 150,000, and they would show up saying, "What are we going to do?" Type idea. And so we're smart.
And that's another thing. That kind of competitive part is amazing, also. But go ahead.
It is. Well, and then the other thing that I would always say to them, and they'd get tired of me saying to it, but I would always tell them, you don't know what you don't know till you know you know. And think about that for a minute. Think about that. You don't know what you don't know. Most of us don't know what we don't know. And it's amazing to me.
Yeah.
And so we would teach them. And here's the real interesting part. The majority of these students went on to keep their businesses. By the way, I meant to tell you, that these were junior and senior students. And so they went on to keep their own
most
business.
of them, why would they stop? Right. Exactly. Why would they stop? They're making money. You taught them, you gave them the foundation to, start the rest of their life. So that's incredible in high school.
I have a student of mine that just called me a while back. He's doing a lot of trading on eBay and all of that. His net earnings right now is above 300,000. And so that's not bad. I mean, that's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
And I used to always say to my students is you need to be so good that people can't ignore you. That's the whole idea. You have that reputation.
Yeah.
You're a great geologist. I don't know anything. I couldn't tell you, but you do. And that's what makes the world so great. Sure. Is you do. When I visited with you a couple months ago at your place, when you showed me some things you were doing, it was just, I went back and I told Cindy, I said, I can't believe what he's doing. And so that's the idea. Now, let me talk about
That's been really great. Well, I was going to say, you had a couple. Well, I was just going to say that, you told me kind of the high school component of this, but this is being used in other places as well, like colleges and university, among groups of different people. And, why don't you talk about how this is being integrated beyond just this kind of starting point at this school in Arizona? Sounds like there's a lot more going on.
There is a lot more going on. And one of the things that's really interesting to me is today in the United States, 37 of our 50 states require students to take entrepreneurship. So it's really growing a lot. Because what they've found out is let me give you an example, and then I've had the great opportunity to work with some state doctors associations. Different, like say the Arizona Pain Doctors Association, such as that. I'm just giving an example. And why would I work with them? The reason they come to me is they're the best pain doctors in the state, but they've never taught how to run a business. And so I have done seminars with them to do that. I used to work with many of those on that. But how did it get into the college was almost by accident. I had a call we have several universities here in Arizona and I got a call from the dean of one of the universities that said to me that she was aware of what I was doing at this academy, and she said, "I'd like you to come on down. I'd like to talk to you because we want to start entrepreneurship at our university." She said, "I understand that your book is a teacher's guide to teachers." And let me talk about that just for a minute. We all shy away from the things we don't know. And so when I wrote this book, Keith, I wrote the book where that if I was to open this book up, for an example, on the left side of the page, with it being open, was page 100. On the right side was page 101. On page 100 is the teacher's lesson, how the teacher teaches it. On page 101 is the actual lesson. And so it gives everything that he or she needs to be able to, and it's also tied in with great videos. I've learned there's several ways people learn. Some listen, some hear, some touch. You know what I'm trying to say? And so almost all of my lessons have that part into it. And so therefore they can take that book and they are able to give that book to the professor or the teacher in the business class, and he or she has it all ready to go. Everything from let me open my own book up and look at it for a second. I'm just going to name a couple things out for it. First of all, we started with what is the best career for me, and that was a lesson on what's the best career. One of my favorite ones is people are afraid to start a business because they think they'll lose the comfort of a salary. And so one of my favorite ones is called Lost Security. You're just kidding yourself. When you are an employee, you wait for them to give you more money, wait for them to hire you, hope they don't let you go, and such as that. Now, I'm biased.
Yep.
Then let's build a business. I teach them how to build a business. Let's now go into advertising. I take them down to advertising businesses where they can see how, because they have to advertise, they have to do all of those questions. I teach them how to do a first initial interview that they can only ask questions to. Like if I was going to interview you, Keith, I could only ask questions about your business because no one cares about you till you care about them. And so I teach them how to do those type of things. Yeah. Financing, I won't read it all out and such as that, but this is what we teach them to do. And so what happened from that was we really were able to get into the universities where they're beginning to understand, and it's becoming very successful to be part of the business department of marketing and all of that goes in with it.
Right.
What happened from that,
which makes sense.
Yeah. And then what happened from that, interestingly enough, I was just on the telephone yesterday with a Native American tribe, and they are very, very interested in being able to help their brothers and sisters of their tribe to work, to be able to
their
work.
Own businesses.
Their own businesses, to be able to. I was on the phone with one of the business directors of the tribe, and he said, you know, here's the situation. We have, they call them brothers and sisters, and I love that. We have brothers that want to work, but we don't have, you know, if we could just learn how to open a convenience store, he said, that was his example, and be able to hire people and do like that. So we're being involved in those situations where the people are coming and saying, you know, we really want to be an entrepreneur. And so it's really a lot of fun, And
that's
and what's neat in today's world, just like we're doing today, in today's world, I get to sit right here in my office and don't have to travel like I used to. It was great. I mean, I've been in every major city in the United States, and I've traveled the world, but this sitting right here isn't bad either.
Yeah, that's not a bad gig. And, you know, again, with putting in the work, putting in the travel is a huge part of it also, if you want to grow your brand and grow your business. So,
right.
You know.
Right.
Really
Right.
incredible. Well, did you have anything else that you wanted to visit about your books, The Teacher's Guide to Entrepreneurialism and The Student's Guide to Entrepreneurialism?
Well, may I tell you how you can get the book? You go to Amazon, and in Amazon, you would go to, there's two books. One is The Teacher's Guide to Entrepreneurship, and the other one is The Student's Guide. And the Student Guide is, most people order both books together because then they're able to, on their own, take the Student Guide and write down their notes and did I understand this and that and like that. So you can go and get that, and I'd love for you to do it. Also, you're welcome to my personal email is D as in David, B as in boy, Jones, Jones, 71 at yahoo.com, djones.com. If anyone wants to call, ask questions, whatever you want to do. I've worked with thousands of people, and I just love being an I do.
Well, I will make sure to get that. Yeah, and listen, I've watched it my whole life. We've known each other for a long time. We're actually relatives.
Yeah.
And, I've watched your success through the years, and you were somebody that I looked up to. So,
thank you. Thank you.
I'm not surprised by the books or any of this. But there's one last thing. You don't get to leave the Grizzled Geologist podcast without giving words of wisdom. And so I need some words of wisdom before we go. Well, go ahead and go.
I love what Warren Buffett said a few days ago. He said, okay, if you don't want to be an entrepreneur, somebody else gets to decide your future. And that's exactly what it is. Who do you want to make the decision? I mean, I can tell you that I know how to work. But I also know how to, we've had vacation homes. We've sold most of them right now just because I stay home most of the time now. But you get to decide. I don't know if you can see it behind me, but you'll see that it's when I go to speak at seminars, behind me there's a poster, I don't know what to call it, and it says, make your own decision, who's going to be the boss? And so I just, I love it. I can tell you, I've helped hundreds and hundreds that have called and said, wow, that book really is what I needed.
Well, I think that's fantastic. The Teacher's Guide to Entrepreneurialism and The Student's Guide to Entrepreneurship. Excuse me, I keep on saying it wrong, but I will put the link in the description. Yep. And so of course, and thank you so much for coming on. And the last thing I wanted to add here was that I couldn't agree with you more. Through my career, what I found, and I've worked for the bigger companies, and what I have learned is exactly what you've been saying. If you want to control your own destiny, if you want to really be the one that knows what the future holds and what to be able to really capture your potential, you really have to kind of shrink it down to a smaller number of people. And sometimes it's just yourself to really be able to capture that kind of control of your life and ability to make the money. Because, and I don't want to seem dark with this, but at the end of the day, you get any bigger than that, you're just a tool for the people that invested in the company to help them make money. And whatever trickles down after that, it's tenuous and it's completely out of your control. So,
well, I love what you
with
said.
that being said, thank you.
Can I make one comment?
Go ahead. Sure, by all means.
I started the business not because of the money. I was already making a lot of money because I was an executive vice president of the company. I started it because I wanted the freedom, and I wanted the freedom. The money came. I can tell you, before long, let me just say one thing. By the time I was 23 years old, I was completely out of debt. I owed nobody a dime. I still don't. And I had the ability to be able to, I became a millionaire. That's the end.
Yeah.
That's the end.
Well, that's a lot quicker and better than I did, but I'm doing my best. And I will say that my hard work
You're great.
My hard work and determination are paying off. And, you've been a good example for all of us. And, I actually really do look forward to getting the book, going through it and seeing how it applies to my life and to enact some of the things that I learned from it. But again, thank you for coming on.
What a great day.
This is the Grizzled Geologist Pod. Thank you, by the way. I've had a lot of compliments on it, but this is the Grizzled Geologist Podcast. Be sure to hit the subscribe button, the like, hit the notification bell. Find me on LinkedIn. If you'd like to come on the podcast, don't be shy, reach out. And to all you other entrepreneurs out there, entrepreneurs, let's just keep on working and making that money. Thanks for coming.
Thanks. Bye now.
You have to work